In the annals of early 21st century reality television, few figures stand out with as much defiant brilliance and tragic consequence as Miriam Rivera. Known to millions simply by her first name, Miriam was a Mexican model and television personality who captured international headlines in the early 2000s as the world's first openly transgender reality television star. Her starring role in the British reality show There's Something About Miriam catapulted her into the center of a media spectacle that was equal parts fascination, exploitation, and controversy. Miriam Rivera's story is not just the tale of a young woman seeking fame in the emergent reality TV boom. It is also a prism through which to examine the precarious and often predatory intersection of gender identity, mass media, and entertainment culture. Coming from a working-class background in Mexico, Rivera's sudden visibility placed her at the cutting edge of a society still deeply conflicted about trans identities, and she did so long before conversations about representation, agency, and respect for transgender people reached the mainstream. Her life, career, and tragic death in 2019 remain emblematic of the contradictions that continue to shape how transgender people are seen, misunderstood, celebrated, and sometimes destroyed by the same forces that claim to champion their stories. This video argues that Miriam Rivera's life and legacy reveal both the transformative and exploitative potentials of reality television as a cultural force. Her story demonstrates how groundbreaking visibility can collide with deep-seated prejudices and industry cynicism, often at devastating cost to those brave enough to stand at the forefront of change. To understand Miriam Rivera's audacious leap into the public eye, one must first look back at the Mexico into which she was born in 1981. Rivera grew up in Guadalajara, Jalisco, a region known for its conservative social values and a Catholic culture that often stifled open conversations about sexuality and gender identity. Yet even as a child, Miriam displayed an irrepressible self-belief and an instinct for performance that set her apart. Like many transgender women of her generation, Miriam's early years were marked by secrecy, coded language, and eventually bold defiance of societal norms. In interviews, she would later recall a childhood filled with ridicule and alienation, but also moments of self-discovery that fueled her desire to live authentically, no matter the cost. By her late teens, Miriam left behind the constraints of her hometown and entered the underground drag and trans performance scenes that provided both sanctuary and livelihood for countless trans women across Latin America. She began modeling, dancing, and working in entertainment, leveraging her charisma and striking beauty to gain a foothold in an industry that often fetishized trans women while denying them dignity. It was in this liminal space, part glamour, part survival, that Miriam's path crossed with producers seeking a twist for a reality dating show that would change her life forever. Her willingness to embrace the spotlight stemmed not just from a hunger for fame, but from a courageous impulse to exist openly in a world that constantly demanded her silence. In an era before the widespread visibility of transgender celebrities like Laverne Cox or Caitlyn Jenner, Miriam's decision to live as herself, on international television no less, was nothing short of revolutionary. But the cost of that revolution, as it turned out, would be extracted in ways she could not have imagined.
When There's Something About Miriam aired in 2004, it drew millions of viewers, generated endless tabloid headlines, and made Rivera a household name, but for reasons that exposed the moral bankruptcy of early reality television. The premise was simple, but cruelly deceptive. 6 unsuspecting male contestants competed for the affections of a stunning woman, with the promise of romance and a cash prize. The twist, known only to the producers and Miriam herself, was that Miriam was a transgender woman, a fact revealed only at the series finale. To modern audiences, the show's premise reeks of bad faith and exploitation. At the time, however, it was marketed as edgy and daring, feeding off the era's appetite for reality TV shockers that blurred the line between genuine human story and staged humiliation. Miriam's participation was both agency and entrapment. She agreed to star in the show, but under immense pressure to keep her gender history secret until the dramatic reveal. The producer's manipulation turned her identity into a punchline, a reveal that stripped her humanity for the sake of a scandalous twist. The backlash was immediate and vicious. The male contestants sued the producers for emotional distress and defamation, claiming they were tricked into appearing gay by being attracted to Miriam, a deeply transphobic argument that the media gleefully amplified. Miriam became the target of jokes, threats, and vitriol, even as her face graced magazine covers and tabloid spreads. She herself expressed regret and anger about how she had been handled, describing how she felt trapped by contracts and constant misrepresentation. Yet even within this spectacle, Miriam's dignity and wit shone through. Despite the media frenzy, she continued to correct misconceptions, insisting on her womanhood and defending her right to love and be loved like anyone else. Her appearances on other reality shows, notably Big Brother Australia, extended her fame but did little to shield her from the psychological toll of being reduced to a shocking secret rather than a whole person. The fallout from There's Something About Miriam remains a searing indictment of an industry that, even now, often balances its claims to representation against its appetite for ratings and controversy. After the initial blaze of notoriety faded, Miriam Rivera's life settled into an uneasy pattern familiar to many reality TV stars, chasing new gigs, fighting for control of her narrative, and navigating a world that often could not decide if it wanted to embrace or erase her. She continued to work as a model, appeared in entertainment projects, and built a fan base that admired her beauty, candor, and resilience. She spoke openly about the challenges of surviving as a trans woman in industries that profited from her while offering little protection in return. In Mexico, she remained both celebrated and marginalized, performing in clubs and small shows, finding love and family in unexpected places. Her marriage to Daniel Cuervo was by all accounts a real source of affection and support, a stabilizing force amid relentless public intrusion. But fame, especially the kind built on controversy, is a volatile currency. Miriam faced ongoing harassment, financial precarity, and threats that hinted at the darker realities of being an openly trans woman in a country with one of the highest rates of anti-trans violence in the world.
When news broke in February 2019 that Miriam had died in her apartment in Hermosillo, Sonora, the story was grimly familiar. Official reports declared her death a suicide, but her husband publicly disputed this, suggesting that Miriam had been murdered and that he was pressured to accept the official version. To this day, the circumstances of her death remain shrouded in rumor and suspicion, a final indignity for a woman whose life was so often shaped by forces beyond her control. In recent years, new efforts to tell her story more fully have emerged. The 2021 Wondery podcast, Harsh Reality, and Channel 4's 2022 documentary, Miriam, Death of a Reality Star, revisit her life with more nuance and compassion than she received in her lifetime. These projects do not merely rehash scandal. They ask difficult questions about complicity, exploitation, and the unfinished work of honoring the humanity of those who break barriers at great personal risk. By examining Miriam's life in all its complexity, the bright lights of her defiant fame, the dark shadows of media exploitation, and the unresolved questions surrounding her death, we are reminded that representation alone is not enough. True progress requires not just putting trans people on screen, but listening to them, protecting them, and respecting the fullness of their humanity. In the end, Miriam Rivera leaves behind more than tabloid headlines and tragic intrigue. She leaves a challenge to an industry and a society that still too often profits from those it claims to champion. To do better, to see deeper, and to remember that behind every twist and every headline is a life, a dream, and a dignity that should never be treated as expendable.
If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you'll be notified when we upload new videos. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video.